I disagree with the Brown versus Board of Education school
Mm-hmm.
integration decision. You should have
Mm-hmm.
seen the jaws dropping. I mean, them people were blown away. And I had to bite my lip to keep from cracking up. Because I was like, she was just introduced by the Secretary of Education. And she
Right.
just blew that stuff right out the box, man. But because what happened was uh, we allowed our children to be indoctrinated by them. It ain't
Yes.
just about education. It's about socialization, indoctrination, and all a lot of other stuff. And we put our kids in some really horrendous type of situations. The most flagrant that I can recall was in Miami. They were busing kids from Liberty City, which
Mm-hmm.
is neighborhood and close to downtown Miami.
Right.
They were
Right.
sending them across the bay to Miami Beach High School.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I can see that scenario right now. These kids getting off that old raggedy yellow school bus, and all their classmates driving Beamers, Mercedes Benz, and this and that. You
Yep.
know, what does that do to a person's self-esteem? You know, and we did that to our own children.
Right.
We did that. I was
Yeah.
educated all the way up through high school in segregated schools. By the time I got to a school that was integrated, I was smarter than all of my white classmates. They couldn't touch me with a 10-foot stick,
I hear that a lot.
you know. 'Cause I knew their stuff and I knew my stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't get close, you
Oh,
know.
that's good. Yeah. See,
Yeah,
I hear that a
this is
lot.
not what we're. Yeah, yeah. It's deep, man. It's deep.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if we don't get back to educating our own, you know, I've been listening to some of your stuff. We gonna be in a world of trouble if we're not
Yes.
already.
What see, that's why I am with what's going on here with DeSantis. And I'm not totally opposed to the marches. I get the marches, I get the lawsuits. I'm not saying don't do that, but what I am saying is all this information that we have, especially like here in Tallahassee, but all this information that we have within our community, of people who know our history. Why are we so adamant about them teaching our children? But
Right,
but we're giving them more energy than we're putting it into ourselves and making sure that our children know our information. It's like, well, it's up to us. You can't on one hand say, okay, these people are racist and they will never teach us our history, and then on the other hand say, I'm mad because you didn't teach me my history. Well, you just answered your question. So,
right, right. They're never gonna teach you. They don't want you to know your history. That's what they
right,
stole from us when they first brought us over here.
right.
But you say you're not opposed to marching. I am. I'm opposed to
S-
it. It's an outdated
It is.
methodology that they have learned how to manage to their advantage.
So
Uh,
yeah,
you,
and
you,
so,
you remember the one Florida march when
yeah, I've
Jeb
seen.
Bush was a
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
a lot of
growing
people
up
went to the
too.
bank because of that, and most of them were not any of us. All
Right,
the black people I saw associated with volunteers, and the white folks was getting paid. People to set up the stage, sound system. The buses had to be rented. The signs had to be paid for. You know, T-shirts.
right, right.
Yeah,
Cause see, well, see, the only reason I'm not opposed is because it's not because I think they're effective. It's not because I think that someday they're gonna work. It's because Negroes gonna keep doing it. And I am like we're in the same
right.
boat. It's just they're gonna keep doing it. I don't understand why they keep doing it, but they're gonna keep doing it and and really expecting a different outcome. And I'm like, well, I think we should put more effort into and energy into building our own stuff, like making sure we have what
Our
we
own
need.
stuff.
Right, right,
We are the only people on the planet that don't have clearly identified homeland. You
right,
know, we know we're African descended people, but from
right,
where? What
right,
part of Africa? Who's your clan? You know, we don't know that. Most of us are
right.
ashamed to even try to find out. But we've been begging these people for over 150 years.
Exactly.
We should have seen the handwriting on the wall a long time ago.
Yeah, yeah. It's not gonna get better. It's not gonna get better.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's getting
It's
worse.
right.
This is this is backing me up to when I was your age. or younger.
Yeah.
The stuff we had to deal with, man, Jim Crow and all of that. It
Mm-hmm.
was yeah, you had to have a certain skill set just to stay alive.
Right.
You know, and we're not passing that on to our kids either. They
Nah,
don't get it.
nah. We see. I'm disappointed because my age group, we're the parents now. We are that group of parents now, and like the
Mhm.
not necessarily the youngest group, but that prime group of parents. That's us right now, and because my group would have no, their children are in their mid to late teens, in their 20s, that have graduated high school. Some
Mhm.
of them have graduated college, and
Mhm.
we're failing our children now actively. Yeah, we've been failed, but we're failing our children. We haven't learned from the generation before us, and our children are doomed to repeat the same thing because we're failing them now. And that's unfortunate that we're doing that, especially when we have more access to information than any other generation before us.
Man, the device you got in your hand, you can teach yourself anything you want to know just by clicking a button on that thing in your hand. You don't
Right,
got to go to the library. You ain't got to find no card catalog. You ain't got to go to the stacks and try to find a book. Blah 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 blah. You got to do none of that. Just go
right,
click, and it just appears like magic right in front of you.
right,
But it's useless unless you use it for that purpose.
right,
If you use it
right.
for a lot of frivolous stuff, that doesn't benefit you at all. You know, we
Yes.
gotta we gotta reorganize our priorities.
But that it makes me think of what you said earlier though, our socialization, like how we've been socialized. I was just having a conversation with one of my friends earlier, and we were talking about how we we put it out in the public a lot, our glorification of the lowest forms of life, our glorification of violence, our glorification of drug dealing, scamming people, gang violence, killing. Those are the people who we kind of push to the top of the society as the ones that we should uphold. And the actual good citizens, the good everyday upstanding citizens who are really making things happen, making the everyday operations happen, they're being overlooked, and they are being
Right,
actually, some are being looked down upon, but the worst of us are being praised by us, and that's not going to help us improve any of our situations.
right.
So
Uh, like I guess our topic for this evening gets to the root of what will
yes,
solve the problem. Because
yes.
if we start trying to grasp those things from Africa that was taken from us, you
Hmm.
know, there's we have a lot of people don't know this, but we have a very strong Afrocentric religious community right here in Tallahassee.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of people don't
You
know.
know, and that's one of the most obvious retentions that you can find. Because
Hmm.
these are people who came over here in slave ships. Maybe they had certain artifacts and certain implements concealed in body cavities, you know, and all kinds of means of hiding stuff that they could bring that was related to their cultural heritage. You
Right.
know, um, I tried to write down a list of all the variations on African religion that I could think of in
Hmm.
this hemisphere. My list is not exhaustive, but it's uh, it's it's pretty long. Let me pull
Okay.
it up here. Where we
Okay.
at? Uh-oh. Where's my meeting? There we go.
And and for
All right.
those tuning in,
This is
oh, go
just
ahead.
well. I start out with the stuff that came out of Egypt.
Hmm.
The 42 negative confessions of Ma'at.
Yep.
If that's not a blueprint for the Ten Commandments, I don't know what is.
It sure is.
If you read it, it's all in your face, right?
Right.
Uh, what about the first crucified and resurrected Savior.
Mm-hmm. Heru. I
Asar,
mean, not Asar. Yeah, not Heru, but Asar.
yeah. Well, Heru will be the counterpart to Jesus.
Right.
You know, he's supposedly still engaged in the fight between good and evil. He's still
Right.
That's still going on to this day,
Right.
right? The eye of hearts that we look at, yeah, that's the eye that Set
Mm-hmm.
plucked out during one of their battles.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what else? There's so much more. There's uh, the whole story of that resurrection of Osar.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's you can look that up. Then you got Ifa, lives out of Nigeria. You got Khan, practice out of Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
You got variations of the stuff out of Africa, like Candomblé in Brazil. You got Lukumi or Santeria, as it's called in Cuba. You
Mm-hmm.
got Obia and Kumina in Jamaica. You got Vodun in Haiti, and that's just a short list.
Mm-hmm.
You know, anywhere you go in the diaspora, you will find some remnants of that.
Right.
You got runaway slave communities. Uh, some areas we call them Maroons,
Mm-hmm.
which is simply a Spanish or French derived word. It means something wild. Or Palenque, like in Cuba they had one called Garda Mujeres.
Gardner
Garda
Mujeres.
Mujeres. Yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
means look out for the women. Guard
Yes.
the women.
Right.
Right.
You know, in Brazil
Uh,
they had San Basilio de Palenque in Brazil.
yeah, Paul Morris.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Paul Morris. When I was in Brazil in '07, I'm looking at the map and I was in Bahia and about maybe 100 miles or so from where I was. There was a town called Paul Morris.
Yes.
I
After
said that
Zumbi.
must be where the Quilombo was, right?
Yep.
But then
Yep.
I found
Yep.
a book in a bookstore. It was written in Portuguese. This is in Bahia, in the mall of this bookstore. The book is called Africa in Nos. Our Africa in Nos, the African within us,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it described Paul Morris. Said
Yes.
Paul Morris, the slave community was about the size of Texas. And I
Wow.
was like, oh,
I
excuse
never
me, it
heard of
wasn't
that.
just some little,
Wow.
yeah, it was like this, about as big as Texas. And it lasted for close to 100 years.
So that's amazing because my South America book I wrote about Zumbi dos Palmeiras and how
Right.
he was able to he was basically the leader of Palmeiras for about 15 years, had them led them to 15 years of peace. And that
Hmm.
was after he was kidnapped and escaped and came back. But that makes that story even more great now because you're telling me for 15 this one man, but of course you said in the last 400 years, but a free community the size of Texas. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
If you, I think the movie Quilombo, which is about Palmares, is streaming on somebody. I believe it's Netflix. I watched it like a week ago.
The movie
Uh,
Quilombo.
yeah, Quilombo.
Okay.
It's one of the streaming services. I want to say it's Netflix, uh,
Okay.
but it's an outstanding movie. It's in Portuguese with English subtitles.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I got to
Then you
check that
got
out.
people like you wrote about these people in your book on Central Americans, the Garifuna or the Garafuna.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. There was a sister that lived in Tallahassee that was a member of that ethnic group. Uh,
I think I know who you're talking about. I think I
she,
met
she
her
used to make
once.
she used to make these patties, like Jamaican patties,
Mm-hmm.
and she used
Mm-hmm.
to sell them at African Caribbean dance theater dance classes. She'd show up with a
Mm-hmm.
whole trunk full of patties, go home with a trunk full of money.
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah. You got in Jamaica, you got a place called Accompong,
Hmm.
another one called Nanny Town.
Yep.
Nanny
Yep.
Town is in the east.
Hmm.
Accompong is in the west. I've been to
Okay.
Accompong, and this is where I learned that runaway slave communities are usually located someplace that's very inhospitable,
Yes.
difficult to access, difficult to even maintain while you're there. You know,
Hmm.
and the reason for that was to avoid people coming after them.
Yep.
You got the Great Dismal Swamp
Yeah, I remember you talking about
that
that.
borders South Carolina. I mean North Carolina and Virginia. I didn't know this until just a few years ago. But all of my mother's people are from that area,
Okay.
and my mother's grandmother, my great grandmother, I used to go visit her all the time. She lived 10 miles away from Dismal Swamp,
And you didn't know?
and then when I discovered what was actually going on in that swamp, um, what's the woman's name that wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin? Yeah,
Harriet Beecher
Harriet
Stowe.
Beecher Stowe.
Hmm.
She's got books on the Dismal Swamp.
Okay.
She's got one that gives the life of a runaway slave who was living in the Dismal Swamp. Uh, yeah, that place is something else, man. It's difficult. There's an island right in the middle of it, but it's difficult to access.
Right.
Uh, Nanny Town in Jamaica, there's a story about it that there were these what the Jamaicans call switchback. We call them hairpin turns, where,
Uh-huh.
where the road does a 180 and cuts back in on itself.
Hmm.
They call them a switchback in Jamaica, right? So there's a story about Queen Nanny of the Maroons, who was by the way from Ghana. She
Yep.
and her brother Kwajo
Hmm.
were brought over, and they just wasn't feeling that getting put into slavery, so they ran off to the mountains. Uh, but anyway, they say that Nanny had a pot sitting right at the bend in one of these switchbacks, and the pot was boiling, but there was no fire underneath it.
Yes.
Nanny was supposed to be an Obia woman.
Hmm.
She knew some things, right? So
Right.
she got this. She got this. They call it, the story is called the nanny pot. The nanny pot, right? So the the road was so narrow that the British soldiers or whoever was trying to get at them would have to come up the hill in single file. So as they enter and disappear around that bend in the hairpin turn, one by one they would see that pot boiling, and they'd investigate it because they couldn't figure out why it was boiling with no fire, and they would
Hmm.
fall in and boil and boil to death and drown.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, but Accompong is where they signed the treaty with the British to cease the hostilities. So we normally think of the Haitian Revolution as the only successful slave revolt, which
Right.
is not precise. It was the only one that resulted in the formation of a nation
Hmm. Right.
afterwards, right? But there were other successful slave revolts. The Maroons in Jamaica were successful in reaching a stalemate. They never won, but they never lost either. They just signed a ceasefire. And Accompong is located in an area that's called cockpit country. In
Yes.
the north
Just
central
learned about
part of
that.
Jamaica, cockpits are they're like sinkholes. There's a whole area of
Hmm.
sinkholes and jagged rocks and stuff, crevices you could fall into and that kind of stuff. Accompong is at the top of this mountain, right on the edge of cockpit country. So this guy up there tells me, he says, I can take you down to the cave where the treaty was signed. And I looked down in there, bro, and I was like, maybe next time.
Right.
I was like, it's good to know I can come and say that's where that happened. And I'm
Right.
not so interested that I have to go, kiss the ground on that spot,
Exactly.
man, because that's some dangerous stuff, man. On the
Yeah.
map of Jamaica, that area, if the map shows any topography, the lay of the land,
Hmm.
that part is just blank, and it's got a little notice typed in up there that says, "Me no send, you no come. If I don't call you, don't even come."
Hey, I
But
don't blame you.
we don't know enough about those type of communities that have existed all over, everywhere. In anywhere you go where they had slaves, they had some kind of resistance like
Hmm.
that. Suriname,
Yes.
where some former slaves went and I think they were all runaways, but they
Yep.
settled in
They had some.
Suriname
Yep.
and went back to practicing, their African traditions just like they did when they were in Africa. And the people
Yep.
showed up a couple of hundred years later saying these people doing these ancient rituals and stuff. They were like,
Right.
dude, you know,
Right.
yeah. So we're surrounded by that stuff.
Yeah. And
Um,
I think what's those the if I believe the Juka people in the Suriname. I believe some of the people are the Juka people, the
okay,
NDJUKA, something like that.
yeah, I forgot what the ethnicity was,
Hmm.
but that stuff is out in the open. But here's the number one African retention:
Hmm.
DNA.
Yes.
Our DNA, that gene that says it tells your pineal gland to excrete some melanocyte stimulating hormone, so the melanocytes in your skin will produce pigmentation. That's the greatest of all African retentions.
Hmm.
Um, I did some research on melanin. Found out one of the primary substances in the melanin molecule is copper.
Right.
That's what gives it that color, right? It's copper. Well, guess what? All your electric lights, all these telephone wires running around here,
Use
that's
copper.
copper, man. That's the cheapest, most efficient conductor of electricity you can find.
Yep.
There are things that are more efficient, but they cost us a lot more money, like gold.
Hmm.
That's real good, but you got to pay for that. Copper is cheap and it works real good,
Right.
right? So most people look at a extension cord or something. If they're gonna wrap it up and put it away, they're gonna wrap it up like they're wrapping up rope. And I'm
Hmm.
like, it's not rope, it's wire. You gotta train it to twist the way you want it to, and then you can keep it forever. You
Right.
know. But so what comes with that? What's the bag of fries that comes with all this melanin and stuff we got in our DNA? To begin with, we got the majority of the dominant genes.
Hmm.
So how can anybody say that we are inferior when we got all the dominant genes?
Right.
That's why they don't want their children mating with us, because the babies ain't gonna come out right.
Right.
The
Right.
babies are gonna tend toward the dark side. You
Yep.
know, you got blue eyes. Not if one of your parents had one gene for brown eyes. You got to have a donation from each parent with the
Hmm.
recessive blue eye gene in order to manifest blue eyes. If you
Right.
got a dominant brown eye gene and a blue eye gene, you will have brown eyes. You can have blue eyed children if you get with somebody that also has recessive, you know, blue eye traits. But the dominant trait always wins. It's gonna manifest over a recessive trait every time,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
every time. And
Yep.
but see how they flip the script and we buy into it because we let them educate our children.
Yep.
Oh,
Right.
everybody's so beautiful if they got blonde hair and blue eyes. Well, I guess they have their peculiarities that make them attractive or whatever, but that's weakness.
Yep.
You're looking at a
Genetic
weakness.
weakness. It is. It is.
Yeah. So, yeah. So DNA, melanin, melanin being a transmitter of electricity, right?
Hmm.
Uh, and you can tell you can tell that whether or not a person's pineal gland is active or calcified by their complexion. Black people have an active pineal gland. It's what we call the third eye,
Mm-hmm.
right? If your third eye is awake, I bet you know a bunch of people who have what we call clairvoyant experiences.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where they think of something and next thing they know it's happening.
Yep.
You know, they
That
think
happened
about
to me.
somebody, next thing they know that person calling them up. You
Yep.
know, that's the function of melanin. You walk into the room and you say, "Oh, the vibe, the show is strange in here."
You can feel it
You can
when
feel
you.
it, you
Yep.
know, and that's mediated by melanin. I had a I had a babysitter who was a pre-med student at FSU. It's a girl from Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked her one day, I said, next time you're in the library, see what kind of information you can find me on melanin. She brought me a book back that was written by a zoologist, a guy who studied animals. And he had been studying reptiles
Mm-hmm.
and looking at their pineal gland. He said the gland is it's in the top of the head, near the surface. It's easy to find. You know, you can see it, you can cut it out, you can look at it, whatever you want to do. He said physiologically, it has a resemblance of an eye, like it's trying to be an eye.
Right.
He said, so he shined some light on it. Nothing. He said, but it did respond to just about every other frequency in the electromagnetic spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
That's magnetism, radio wave, microwave, all of that stuff. You know, the whole visible spectrum of colors and stuff. You know, so we're walking around with a computer chip inside
Yep.
our head. We just
Yep.
don't know how to use it effectively.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, but that's a biological African retention.
Right.
You know? Yeah, man. Stuff was just rolling out of me the other day. I had to write it all down. Um, how about Anthony Browder?
Yep.
He's got two books of note. He's got a lot of books, but two that I'm especially fond of. One is called Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. One of
Yep.
the best books on the subject I've ever read. It's written at a high school level, so you don't got to be
Yes.
no rocket scientist to
That's how he
read this book,
writes. Yes.
right? The other one is Egypt on the Potomac,
Oh yeah.
where he talks about all the things that were derived from Egypt that are built into the ground plan of Washington D.C. Certain
Mm-hmm.
buildings. Washington Monument is a dead giveaway. That's
Right.
that's that's an obelisk, which is that's not a correct term either. The term is
The
Tekken.
Tekken. Yep.
Yeah, Tekan, right? But that represents a prosthetic phallic device that Offset had to
Yep.
manufacture
Yep.
so she could conceive after Sar was assassinated,
Yep.
because there was a prophecy that said their son would avenge his death, but they
Yep.
hadn't had a son yet. You know, Sar had been murdered and dismembered, and the parts of his body had been scattered all over Egypt.
Right.
She cut him into 14 pieces. Egypt has 14 provinces, right? Thing that was missing was the phallus.
Mm-hmm.
So she had to make a prosthesis in order to conceive Horus or Heru. Uh, that's that's the stuff we're practicing on this side of the ocean is hand me down.
It is.
So this hand me down religion is they stole our religion. Who got it first? The Greeks.
Yep.
When Cleopatra gave up Egypt to Mark Antony and them, when that happened, the Greeks stole the religion. They had already been
Yep.
saying that Egypt was the most advanced place on the planet. Herodotus said that. You
Yep.
know, you want a good education, send your kids to Egypt. Them
Yep.
12 years where they say Jesus disappeared, from age 12 to age 30 or whatever it was.
Where did he go?
He was part of that time he was in Egypt.
Right.
There's a book called it's called the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ.
Yeah.
And it talks about all the places he went when he disappeared from Israel during that period of time.
Right.
Yeah, but the Greeks got it. What happened to the Greeks? The Romans stole it from them. If you look at their pantheon, they're exactly the same characters. They just got
Changed
different names
names
because of the languages are different.
Yep.
Right? But if you look at the Kemetic pantheon, guess what?
Same thing.
It's the same people, So they filtered it, whitewashed it a little bit, and then they forced it back on us in a corrupted form.
I tell them all the time, Thoth or Tahuti is the same person as Hermes, the same person as Mercury. It's the same. They stole it from us.
Right. Yeah. Well, we should say Mercury.
Yep.
Yeah, the messenger. He's the one.
Yep.
Yeah, the messenger. What's his name? Hathor. Yep. That's Oshun.
Yep.
That's Oshun in the Ephod tradition. Yeah, that's the. Are you familiar with the Osar Aset Society?
Not the society.
Headed by a brother named Ra-Un Nefer Amen.
No.
They're based in Atlanta.
Okay.
And this is before I ever met you. This is back in the 90s. He came. We used to have an ASCAC chapter here, Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization.
Okay.
And we invited this brother here for a week to do a series of lectures and discussions and whatnot. And he stayed with me. That was very interesting because this brother operates on another level.
Right.
He's from Panama, Central America, not Panama City, but the country of Panama. And he's a piano virtuoso. And he was telling me that his piano teacher used to make him study the piano while he was not sitting at the piano. He had to be someplace else and process all this in his head instead of actually being able to put his hands on the bill. You do all of that, then you come to the piano and sit down and play.
It's nothing.
But he had this whole thing about music, about almost like what the Hindus do when they chant with Om and all of that. And he had a different key signature for each day. And on whatever day you would chant in whatever key signature that was. But yeah, that brother was deep. This still is. But that's just another example of African spirituality, that's present here in the West. How about stuff like let me see. Talked about certain customs and traditions that we have bought into during the 70s. The wearing of dashikis became very popular.
Right.
People trying to speak Swahili. Right. So I took a Swahili class at the junior college in Miami back in, I don't know, early 80s. You got MC Hammer pants.
Yeah.
As MC Hammer used to wear.
That's African.
That's classic African shokoto. The pants the drummers wear. I don't know why we didn't buy into that instead of all that sagging.
Because the white people didn't co-sign it.
Yeah, man, I could have walked. I mean, I got a pair of shokoto that I made for myself. I sold them myself.
We all had those pants when he came. When he came out, everybody had a pair of what we call the hammer pants. Everybody.
Hammer pants, that's right. You got your Agbada set, which is like a 4-piece outfit, pants, shirt, what they call a grand booba, and a hat. Agbada set. You got tie dyeing and batik that we do with fabrics. the cultivation of indigo and rice in the Sea Islands. The people that were
Yes.
brought to the Sea Islands, most of
Gullah,
them
Geechee.
came from Sierra Leone. And the reason they got people from Sierra Leone is because they already knew how to grow rice.
You know, so me and my friends, Patrick and Carl, the videos that we record, that's one of the things that we keep talking about is when, especially like slave trade and when black people were being kidnapped, they didn't just kidnap just any random black people. They kidnapped specific people with specific skills because they knew what they
Right,
wanted to cultivate.
right, right,
Yeah.
absolutely. Uh, Let me see. Somebody found out that the patois they speak in Sierra Leone.
Mm-hmm.
They took some people from South Carolina Sea Islands to Sierra Leone, and they could instantly communicate with those people
Mm.
through their dialects. You know, the
Right.
Gullah and the patois.
Okay.
Uh, Music and dance. Now, one thing about African music, they don't have the blues.
Right.
But they do play music in with a minor key. When you hear something
Mm.
that's in a minor key, that's going to be bluesy sounding. But
Right.
that's the twist that African Americans put on it based on our experience here. But
Mm-hmm.
they have some very happy songs in
Yeah, they
minor
do.
keys. But the blues is from on this side. Um, Polyrhythms. That's another thing that's mediated by the pineal gland in the third eye. But you got all these things like Afro-Cuban, bossa nova, break dancing,
Mm-hmm.
cha-cha, the Charleston, jazz, jitterbug, zonkanoo, compa from Haiti, merengue from the Dominican Republic, rhythm and blues, of course,
Mm-hmm.
salsa, swing,
Yes.
and
Yep.
zouk. And I know I
Yep.
haven't exhausted the list. Yeah. Uh, what about your church ladies and the hats that they wear?
Mm-hmm.
That's reminiscent of the African tradition of women covering their heads, and the head covering is an indication of their status in society. Are you married?
Yeah.
Are you single? Are you widowed? You know, are you available? Whatever.
Also, that remind me of the Tijin laws that they had in Louisiana with the black women when they made them wrap their heads up because the white men were overly attracted to the black women in their hair, so they implemented what they called the Tijin laws in New Orleans to make the black women wrap their hairs, but the hair wraps were so beautiful and elaborate that the white men still fell in love with them.
Right. How about that? You
Yeah.
know, yeah. You ever seen a house with blue paint around the doors and the windows?
Yes.
That's an African derived tradition to
Okay.
fight off. It's almost like what the Hebrews did at Passover.
Mm-hmm.
You know, put something on the door so the evil stuff will pass you by.
Gotcha.
Uh, how about chemistry? The word
That's African.
chemistry derives from
Yep.
chemet. You
Yep.
know, geometry. The reason the Egyptians came up with geometry is because all the property boundaries were always washed away when the Nile flooded. So they had to redraw all the lines. And
Right.
they developed geometry so they could, reestablish the boundaries.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
what else? Uh, how about embalming?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Embalming. They the first ones to do anything like that. You know, as far as we know, they had. I don't know if they're the first person that ever came up with the concept of an afterlife, but they're the first person that documented it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you read the book of Coming Forth by Day, it
Yep.
tells you how you're supposed to conduct yourself when you go live with Osar. It's
Yes.
like a, it's like
You
a like a reference book, a user's manual. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that because you reminded me because you also made me think about a conversation I had with a young lady a while ago. Because I was telling her about the speaker Bobby Hemmett, because Bobby Hemmett talked a lot about certain books that taught about the afterlife that were based off the Egyptian concepts. But you just reminded me, yeah, the book of Coming Forth by Day is a literal outline of the afterlife and what you're supposed to do. I wish I'd remembered that at the time. I'd have told her to check it out. But yeah, that's a clear outline.
Yeah, I mean, outline for real. It's step by step.
Right,
First you got to do this, and then you go do
right.
that, and then you go find so and so, and you hang out with him for a little bit, and then I mean,
Yep.
it's killer, man. I got I have a coffee table print of the actual papyrus
Oh, that's nice.
in color. It's beautiful, man. Fold out pages and stuff. I mean, it's nice,
I
but,
bet.
but it's the oldest story ever told.
Right, right,
There's
right.
there's something that I don't know if I saw this document, but when I was in Egypt in '97, somebody said that the information in the Book of Coming Forth by Day, right, in the tomb where they first found it, which was in somebody's grave somewhere, it was written on the wall. He said that tomb was 2,000 to 3,000 years old. He said, but the inscription on the wall said that this information contained herein is ancient to us.
Yes,
So you're talking about ancient people who talk about something that they say is ancient to them.
right.
Who knows how old that is?
And that's what I
Somebody
tell people all the
somebody hit
time.
me with a proposition that rocked my world a little bit. We were talking about the Horror Marquette, the Sphinx.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Most people date that as, I don't know, what they want to say, 3,500 years, 4,000 years, right? But according to Anthony West, in his book, which the name of which I can't remember, but he talks about the erosion lines
Yep.
on the statue, right? There are horizontal erosion lines that result from when the Nile flooded.
Yep.
That everybody understands that even though the Nile no longer flows past that site, it used to. It doesn't now,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then there's these vertical gashes that you can see. Now, when I was there, they were doing a renovation project, and I think they're trying to cover all this up, putting
Mm-hmm.
new bricks on top,
Right.
overlaying, right? But I see these vertical. I got a picture of myself pointing at these vertical gashes in the Sphinx that will indicate rainwater, like rainwater falls off your roof,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so this author dates the Sphinx back to about the end of the last ice age, about 10,000 years ago.
Yep.
The ice age ended around 8,000 BC,
Yep.
and here we are, 2000 AD. So that's about 10,000
Right.
years. But I'm talking to this guy one day, and he said, I don't know about that age on the Sphinx. I said, yeah, I know. Everybody underestimates. He said, no, 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 no. That's not what I'm talking about. He said, at the end of the last ice age, the types of building materials they would have needed and other resources, it's very possible they were not available at that time.
Mm-hmm.
He said, but the Sphinx seemed to be an indication that it was built during the age of Leo, right? So if you understand precession of the equinoxes, which we can get into in a minute,
Mm-hmm.
you'll know about how long ago that was. We're getting ready to go into the age of Aquarius. That's what that song
Right.
was all about. The dawn
Right.
of the age of Aquarius. But anyway, the age of Leo, let me see, you got Aquarius, you got Taurus, you got Gemini, Cancer, and then Leo. So that's 5 signs back from where we are now, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Uh, According to precession of the equinoxes, the sun stays in each sign roughly 2,000 years. It's not exactly
Mm-hmm.
2,000, but that'll do for government purposes and make the arithmetic easy, right? So we talking 10,000 years, right? But
Right.
this guy tells me, he says, I think it's 36,000 years old. I said, wait a minute, whoa, whoa, whoa. It takes the sun 26,000 years to go through one complete cycle of the precession of the equinox.
Mm-hmm.
So if it was in Leo 10,000 years ago, and you go 26,000 years before that to the previous age of Leo, that's 36,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm like, who who can we get to believe that that's the case instead of what everybody's been talking about for so long?
Right.
That thing is
Yeah.
possibly way older than you think it is.
Well, see, I do think it's older than what we've been told. Just by a lot of the information I've been able to consume over the years. Because even I've heard that the before the face, and they I forgot who it was who I was listening to this from, but they was talking about the face being the face of the toi, or the derogatory term that the white people gave them, or the pygmy. But they're saying that that could be the
Yeah,
face of the toi, the oldest, one of the oldest group of, probably the oldest group of humans, period. But then
right.
this person was also saying this human face is the new face, and the previous face was the face of the lion, because it's the mastering of the self, the mastering of the lower self. But he was saying that he believed that the previous face was of a lion, and then as time came on, it was carved into the human face. I'm not saying that's true, but that's just what I heard. But I do
Yeah,
believe that it's a whole lot older than what people are saying, especially if people look at carbon dating and stuff like that too.
yeah. And see, the significance of the lion is to indicate that it was the age of Leo when they built that. And
Hmm.
if you look at what the rest of the sky looked like when Leo was rising with the sun on the first day of spring, the constellation of Orion will be on the horizon to the south, look like a man running across the edge of the earth.
Right.
So that's the connection between the ground plan and the pyramids and the fact that there's this lion standing there.
Hmm.
But all of that is African retentions, man.
Yeah, it
You
is.
go to you go to London or Paris, or there's only three places in Europe that I have any interest in. That's two I just named: London and Paris, and Seville in Spain.
Hmm.
In Seville, the Spanish have the documented records of all of their explorations in the New World.
Hmm.
Letters written by Columbus and all that. I would like
Right.
to lay my eyes on some of that, right? But in Paris and London, in the Louvre in Paris and the British Museum,
Hmm.
that's where some of the most important African artifacts are that come out of Egypt. They
Right.
try to steal everything. They try to steal everything.
Yeah, it is.
If they could lift it, they stole it. You
Right.
know, yeah. So that's the only reason I would want to go to those places.
Yeah, because they
Their
got the
culture and
information.
all that doesn't have any particular draw for me. I tend to
Yeah.
be more African centered. I mean,
Yeah.
people look like me.
Right. So let
Yeah,
me ask you this, just I'll ask you this for the sake of the audience, to make sure that they understand your concept and your ideologies around it. Like, what's your definition, or your how would you articulate African retentions? I know we just gave a lot of information that is African retention, but how would you kind of define African retentions?
there will be there will be things that we either uh, remember or talk about or preserve somehow in our activities, in our cultural surroundings.
Hmm.
That uh, if you know about certain African traditions, you can trace them back to those origins. There are some things that we probably have that are African retentions. We just don't know how to identify them or where they come from.
Hmm.
But call and response singing.
Hmm.
You know, lot of stuff we do in church. Uh, people getting happy in church. People catching the
Mm-hmm.
Holy Ghost in church, right? If you go to a traditional African spiritual ceremony, you will see people getting possessed. But
Yep.
most of the time, the difference is in the African setting, we can identify who that is or what
Mm-hmm.
that is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Could be one of the divinities, could be an ancestor,
Right.
because generally they have a message for somebody, either for everybody or somebody. But that's the kind of thing you try to find out when that happens, right? In the church, you basically surround that person to make sure they don't hurt themselves,
Yeah.
but you don't ask them any questions or why are you here, anybody you need to
Right.
talk to. We don't go to that extent inside the
That's
Christian church.
interesting.
But
Right.
that's definitely you go to white folks church, ain't gonna be no amens in the corner or none of that.
Right.
Yeah, that's definitely African.
Yeah. 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 That's now that's interesting. And I never thought about it from that concept of because I've always understood that a black person in America or anywhere else in the diaspora who's Christian catching the Holy Ghost is no different from the possession that the Africans got in our indigenous religions or indigenous spiritual systems. But I never thought about them actually engaging with the spirit. Like, hey, who are you? Why are you here? What's your man? I never thought
Hmm.
about that for in the Christian
If
setting.
it's if it's an Orisha, you're gonna know almost immediately just because of how they behave.
Okay.
Each Orisha has a characteristic behavior, and when they show up, they'll be doing what they do, and you can identify that. Now, ancestors, you might have to ask a question: like, why you here? Da da da. But Orishas are pretty much almost immediately identified.
So
Yeah,
right by their behavior. Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
I was in Bois Caiman, the alligator forest, the place where the Haitian Revolution started. Amazing. I cried when I stepped foot on the place, man. It brought
Mm-hmm.
tears to my eyes, right? But later on, somebody asked me, he said, well, the location is off the beaten path. This ain't no tourist attraction. Because you gotta do some hiking, you gotta drive as far as you can go, get out the car, then you gotta walk about almost a mile, right?
Mm-hmm.
Off into the cut to get to this. It's a little cave. So somebody asked me after my visit, he said, how did you like the trees? I
The
said, there weren't
trees.
any trees. He said, well, wait a minute, don't they call it the alligator forest? I said, that is peculiar. Why would they call a place without trees a forest?
Mm-hmm.
He said, well, it used to have trees. He said, but the Catholic priests told the people in the community that there were evil spirits living in the trees, so the people cut the trees down.
Mm.
And I was like, there you go. I don't know if you've seen the movie Sankofa, but
Yep.
that
Yep.
sentiment is loudly displayed in the movie Sankofa.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. See, that's my thing. I'm always talking about the missionaries, the job of the missionaries, the history of the missionaries, and how the missionaries played on the psychological and the spiritual, guess you could say, weakness or gullibleness or openness of African people. But coming in, the arrogance of these missionaries to come in and say, "Hey, I worship Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ is better than your God, so you need to worship my God," and reject everything that y'all people did for all of your existence, which is definitely longer than ours, but accept Jesus Christ. And then after that comes the European colonization.
Yeah. Do you remember the Roman Empire,
Hmm.
the military Roman Empire?
Yep.
The Catholic Church is that same empire.
Yes.
They just don't use guns. But look at the structure. They have a hierarchy. It's just like the military. They got ranks. Got the Pope, the cardinals, the archbishops, on down the line, right? You have outposts, what we would call forts, if they were in the military, all the
Hmm.
monasteries and places like that that have an entourage manning that place. That people live there, protect it, and do whatever, you know. And then they spread out from there with this ideology that they want to force on everybody. I don't know how much you are in the stand-up comedy, but Trevor Noah
Yes.
has a routine called "Afraid of the Dark." It's on
Hmm.
Netflix. I watched it last night.
Hmm.
Part of his routine, he talks about when the British tried to colonize India. I'm not gonna spoil it. You got to watch it. It's hilarious, right?
Okay.
But he said the British showed up on their little skinny horses, talking about, you are now under the British Empire. And then the guy looks up at the sky and he's like, as far as I can see, India is the same place it was yesterday. you know, what you talking about under the British Empire?
Right.
And they go back, they go back and forth, but it is absolutely hilarious and it's so to the point. He basically explains the whole dynamic of colonization or how they
Right.
did it. They just rolled up, if you didn't want to talk about it, that's when they pulled out some guns,
Yeah.
you know.
Yep. Yep.
It's
Yep.
enough for discussion,
Yeah.
you
It's
know.
kind of like I make a connection for people like um there's certain movies like the hood movies that they used to make, especially like throughout the 90s and early 2000s, and like one of the running storylines, because they make, on black people, we got a chance to make good movies, and they still make the same old hood shoot 'em up bang bang movies. But it's all the running
Hmm.
storyline is always, okay, you either get down or you lay down. So like you just said, we want your stuff, so you either gonna give it to us peacefully or we're gonna take it. That's like you said, that's colonization in a nutshell. Hey, we need your resources to make our empire better, and you got what we need. And hey, we got these guns and we got these cannons, so we could fight if you want to, but we want to take your stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah. It's and we I don't know. We grin and bear it for some reason. I've been about, no, we need our own everything.
yeah.
To say that you're sovereign, right? If you're sovereign, you have a sovereign nation and you're a sovereign
Hmm.
individual. That means you have the means and the ability to handle all your own business. Now,
Right.
you talk about a sovereign state, they got a government, they got some kind of lawmaking body, they got banks, they got military, they got ambassadors,
Hmm.
people dealing with foreign relations and trade, all of
Right.
that. We as a people don't have any of that. We
Totally
got we got
dependent.
people that may work in those areas, but
Right.
we don't own that as we don't have our own military to help us protect all that, even if we had it.
Right.
You know, so we find ourselves in this continuous loop of begging white people for a little restraint, a little help. They'll throw some little crumbs out there. Oh, okay, here's somebody who's gonna make him. I just saw the brother who was the head of the FAA on the news the other day talking about all these planes trying to run into each other.
Yes.
And I was
Yes.
like, oh, okay. There was I remember the first brother who was head of the FAA. He was the president of the NAACP. I can't think of his name now, but this is way back in like the 70s or 80s. It was a brother who was made head of the FAA. So I guess that's almost like Supreme Court justices now. You lose
Hmm.
one, they got to replace it with another one.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, Lisa, I want to commend you because you remind me of Curtis Mayfield.
Yeah.
Curtis Mayfield, he was an entertainer, but he never slacked up off the message.
Right.
He was true to the message to the very end. He never backed down from the message. And that's why I compare you to him. You don't back down from the message.
I appreciate
You
that.
know,
I take that. I
yeah,
take that comparison. Yes, sir.
yeah,
Yes, sir.
welcome,
But
brother. Welcome. I really respect that. Yeah,
no, I appreciate it, but you know, it's all hats off to people like you, especially with you being in Tallahassee. Um, we I tell people all the time about the conscious community in Tallahassee, and you are one of the longtime contributors to this community, and I'm talking about the progressive ones in the conscious community, ones who are about not just retaining the information, because you connect with the young people all the time, whether it's through your music, whether it's through your storytelling. You are one of the you're a true elder. We have olders and we have elders, and you in this elder category. You know, you and I, we you know, we bump into each other all the time in some of the most obscure places that we may not expect to be in, but we're in these places, and you helping the youth, I'm helping the youth. And that's one of the things I really respect about you is I could be in Dade Street, I could be in the D block, I could be in Holton Street, I could be in some trailer park, I could probably be somewhere in Woodville, I could be in some of the most undesirable places, trying to do something with the community, trying to do something with the children, and then you are there, and they are the people are receiving you and they're respecting you. You have your instruments and you're playing and you're telling your stories. Like when you came to the Black History program I had in Joe Louis, and you came and you told the stories, I really appreciated that. And that was big because those children in those projects needed to hear those stories from you and um just everybody else who came. It just is amazing that somebody like you exist, and I just appreciate everything you've done. Like even just tonight, just the conversation is just so rich, and you know your information, and you one of the reasons why I do know a lot of the information I do. So I definitely take that compliment from you, but definitely need to know how much of a gem and a jewel you are to this community, and especially to me, helping me get to where I am in this platform, because you contributed in the past and you still contributing now. So I appreciate you, Bob.
well, thank you, brother. A long time ago, I lost one of my kidneys when I was in the military,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought I was going to die. I was in my
Mm-hmm.
20s, and when I didn't die, I decided that I had been given borrowed time and that I need
Mm-hmm.
to make the best of it. You know, the powers that be that kept me here for some reason. 'Cause I was surely going to die if I hadn't had that surgery. Right?
Yes.
So one of the first things I did while I was recovering from the surgery was I read the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have what they talk about the 6 degrees separation.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Haley is the one who penned that
Right.
based on interviews with Malcolm. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Alex Haley served in the Coast Guard, and so did I.
Okay.
And when he was writing Roots, we had some people keeping up with him to see how he was coming along with that book. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
with Malcolm's biography, Malcolm made a statement in there. He said, "Travel broadens your scope.
Yes.
Travel broadens your scope." So I decided way back then that I was going to try to do as much traveling as I could, and I have been blessed. I've been to Egypt, I've been to Senegal, I've been to Brazil, been to Haiti, been to Jamaica, Bahamas, been to Cuba like 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen, that's what I like about Runoko Rashidi.
Yes.
You're the one that turned me on to him. I knew of him, but you the
Mm-hmm.
one got me watching this video.
Okay.
Yeah, but he left no stone unturned. He went
Right.
everywhere he thought it was necessary to go. You
Yeah.
know, so I haven't been able to do it to the extent that he has, but I have learned a lot, a whole lot. Plus, I grew up in the middle of the civil rights movement. My dad was the equivalent of C.K. Steele in Atlanta.
Oh man. Right. Yeah, you told me about your dad. Yeah.
Yeah, so I got confrontations with the Ku Klux Klan and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. threats of somebody coming to the house to blow it up or do violence and all that. I got that in my experience as well. So I've been blessed to have enough of a clear head up to now to be able to share as much as I can with the community. So you're definitely a means for me to do some of that. I think I've
Yes,
been
sir.
on here several times before, so
And you
every
welcome
time we
back
hold it.
anytime you want to come, you're welcome back, because especially I know my audience definitely loves the information that you drop off, because I've some of the past interviews we've done, I cut them up and did little clips of those, and they've got good views and they got good responses and things, especially Hot John the Conqueror. That's a very
Oh
popular
yeah,
one.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I recorded that the other day. I'm gonna put that out on
Okay.
CD. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a lot
that's a
longer than what I read on the show. It's a
okay.
lot more to it
Okay.
than that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good story though. Yes, sir. Yes,
yeah.
sir. But also I want to I was doing a podcast the other night, and are you familiar with the historian Dr. Dunn? I believe Dr. Marvin Dunn out of Miami,
Marvin
South Florida.
Dunn.
Yes.
Yeah, man, Marvin Dunn. I know Marvin Dunn. I know him.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So
Yeah.
I was on the podcast with him last Thursday night with Mr. Perry Busby. He lives here in Tallahassee, and he invited me on the podcast, and Dr. Dunn was on there, and yeah, uh it, a lot of good information. He
Yeah, yeah.
I
We
didn't
we 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 worked together at the junior college
okay,
at that
okay,
Miami-Dade Community College. Yeah, I know him fairly
okay,
well. Yeah.
okay, yeah. No, definitely learned a lot from him because he gave a lot of good information on there. But being on this podcast, one of the things that we was definitely getting into, because one of the focuses was Black history, the education of it, and also like the status of HBCUs and how this goes into helping the HBCUs and things. But somebody like a Dr. Dunn, somebody like yourself, I believe that you should be the celebrities, and not necessarily y'all having to have the Hollywood flair, but what I mean is, like I said earlier, we put our energy behind the wrong people, and when putting our energy behind the wrong people, we exalt the wrong people, and so we should be exalting those like yourself who actually really put the work in. Like you really put the real work in. Like I say, we can find you still with the youth anytime, any day. I remember the last time I ran into you, we were doing the COVID testing, and you were part of it was a play, and it was in the art park, and it was like early in the morning. And it was I forgot the exact day, but there was a series of different things. But it's just like being on that podcast, especially being with Dr. Dunn, and the conversation that we're having, especially surrounding education, and how a lot of people feel like DeSantis is attacking our history. And I, me, that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to try to do whatever they can to keep that dominance, but we're supposed to do everything we can to increase ourselves on our end. And so that's putting all that energy into learning our history. But one of the things I focused on was the disconnect between the generations. There's a clear disconnect between the generations. But once again, going back to you're a part of that linchpin between the generations. And that's why you always welcome on this platform, because I want to make sure that I'm helping to mend that gap between the generations, because y'all have so much information that we need, and we got a lot of information too, but we got a lot of the energy, but you all have a lot of the information. And the only way to further that information, first we have to know it, but there has to be a connection between the generations. And once again, commending you for helping to have some sort of connection between the generations.
Thank you, brother. I substitute taught for 20 years in the Leon County
Hmm.
school system, and quiet as it's kept. I'll say that on this platform. I won't say that out too much in the public, but I had a hidden agenda
Hmm.
because when I got into the school system, I worked at all grade levels, different schools. I finally settled on just doing high school, And I worked primarily at Leon, Sale, and sometimes Lincoln, and every now and then one of the other schools. But Leon and Sale and Lincoln were my mainstay. Um, but I taught just about every subject, across disciplines and whatnot. And I discovered that even though we say the schools are desegregated, if you drive by any school before the tardy bell rings for the first period, you will see all kinds of people out on the ground socializing or whatever. But when the bell rings and you walk into the building, who's going to be in your AP classes? Who's going to be in your science classes, your language classes, your higher level math classes, right? Who's going to be in the remedial classes, the reading, the people with poor skills, right? That's where racially the divide happens again, right?
Right.
Now, another thing that's happened is that in the lower grades, and my daughter kind of pulled me onto this, and she's a school teacher, and she said they start testing in the third grade. So there's a tremendous amount of pressure on third grade teachers to bring kids up to standard so they can pass these tests like the FCAT.
Right.
And that kind of these standardized tests, right? The problem is the kids are arriving at third grade with subpar skills.
Yep.
Right? By the time you get to the third grade, this is some stuff you should have mastered so you can keep on moving. But the third grade teachers are under all this pressure to get these kids to pass the test. Right? Now, what I discovered on my own is that when they teach reading, they stop teaching phonetics. They do not teach phonetics anymore. So the kid comes up on a word and he doesn't know what it is. He has no way to figure out how to pronounce it or anything.
So they don't sound them out no more.
Right. Well, you could sound it out if you knew what sound you're trying to make. Right. And that's what the phonetics teaches you, because they have diagrams, all those that little thing in parentheses next to the word.
Yep.
With all the little symbols and stuff.
Yep.
That's the pronunciation guide to tell you how to say that word, but you have to know what those symbols are. I carry around with me for when I just run into some kids. I give them a copy of this list of it gives you the symbol, then it gives you a word that makes the sound that they're talking about. So when you see that symbol, you know it's the A as in cat. Or for instance, what's like C and K, right? Those one of those letters is not necessary. Right. Because you can say certain or certainly, CER, or you can say can't. That's two different sounds for that C. So one has a K sound, the other got kind of like an S sound.
Right.
So, between S, K, and C, what's going on? But I had a lesson that I was teaching. I was doing an after-school program connected with the Raleigh Museum, and dealing with 4th and 5th graders. And our modality was to improve their reading skills. So I use all kinds of subject matter for that, tell them to go write a report on somebody. I would always give everybody a different report so they couldn't copy off each other. Plus, we could get like 10 times as much information all at once because everybody's doing an individual report, right? So I was doing a section on the Bill of Rights, first 10 amendments to the Constitution, and I was looking specifically at the Second Amendment because it was in the news all the time. That's the gun rights amendment, right? That whole amendment is all of 2 sentences. It's not quite 30 words in total. The whole thing is 2 sentences, just one line of space, right? So I asked one of the students, young lady, I think she was in the 5th grade. I said, "Young lady, would you stand up in front of the class and read the Second Amendment to the rest of the class? Read it out loud." As she was standing, She said, "Do I have to read all of that?" I'm telling you, man, my jaw dropped. I was like, suppose I gave you a 100-page book with no pictures.
Right.
You know, and ask you to read that.
They'd be in
The
trouble.
kids are not, they're too engaged in the devices because the
Yes.
devices don't require a lot of attention span.
And no critical
You can
thinking.
scroll through stuff. With a book, you got to spend some time with it, you know,
Right.
and you got to read more than the first paragraph to get the content down, you know, and these kids are not willing to do that.
And see that has led to a lack of critical thinking, not just with the young folk, but with the people my age range and
Absolutely.
some older. So I post some of my videos on TikTok now, and TikTok is rotting in people's minds. I will say that. Some good information, but it's rotting in people's minds for the most part. But I say once a week, I run across somebody giving some kind of fantastic information that you can't prove. And it's just
Right.
information that you're supposed to believe because they are very, very passionate about it. They might have the right angle with the sun shining on their skin, and they look very melanated. But what they're saying has no merit. But the lack of critical thinking is allowing people to say, you know what, it sounds right, so it has to be true, rather than, hey, this is the information this person is giving me. Let me find some supporting information on this before I give a
Right.
verification or before I deny it. But that process is not given. So, but that's not going to happen if people can't even sound words out.
Right. That's
Yeah.
right. We're in a world of trouble. Yeah,
Yeah.
when they dropped that, you know, they used to, and I remember this ain't wasn't that long ago. All the ads on TV used to be hooked on phonics.
Yep. Yep.
What happened to
Yep.
that? That was the key to everything.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
They used to be on there all the time, hooked on phonics, all these different reading programs and things.
yeah. If a person can read with understanding, I
Yes.
don't mean just say the words, but understand what it is you're reading. And what I tell students to do, okay, you're reading some document online.
Mm-hmm.
You come across a word, you don't know what that word is. Most of the time they'll say, well, whatever, and they'll keep going. I'm like, no, don't do that. I said, pull up a second tab on your screen, make that a dictionary. Run into a word you don't know, click on your dictionary, find out what it is before you take another step.
Yep.
And once you know what it is, then continue reading. If it happens again, do the same thing. You keep doing it. It's not a race. You're not rushing to anything. You can take all
Right.
day to read that if you want to. You know, so take the time to look at the details.
Yes.
My seventh grade science teacher when I was in middle school, the only thing he ever said that I remember: pay attention to the details. The devil
Yep.
is in the details.
Yes.
Right? There's one little thing that you missed because you were sitting in the back of the class acting a fool, and that one little detail that the teacher dropped didn't make no big deal about it, but that's the linchpin for everything. You missed it, and now you can't solve the
Yep.
problems today
Yep. Yep. Yep.
because you don't have all the tools.
Yep.
You know,
No, no.
I
Yeah.
encourage students to sit on the front row as close to the teacher as they can.
Mm-hmm.
Sit on the front row. You want to be close so you can hear and see everything that's going on that's relevant to that class. You don't want to be in the back. Even if you're not cutting up, you're going to be in the midst of people who are. You're
Right.
going to
You
disrupt
miss some stuff.
your process. You
Right.
know, so no, sit up front and get close. When I was in college, I was a psych major, and when we were in one of our psych classes, we didn't really like the teacher that much, and we would all sit close to the windows in
Mm-hmm.
this class. We would all find a seat on one side of the room next to the windows. As the teacher was lecturing, if he walked away, like toward the door to the other side of the classroom, we'd all get disengaged and start looking out the windows.
Mm-hmm.
When he come to our side of the classroom, we were in there. We were attentive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hanging off of every word. Within about two classes, He lectured only to us.
Right.
we,
Hey.
we had conditioned him to stand right in front of us and give us the whole lecture. But
No, but
that's how.
but that you it's a great way to explain how environments are shaped though, and how behaviors are shaped within a controlled environment. Like you are literally in
Yes.
a controlled environment, and it's funny the students shape the behavior of the teacher. You taught the teacher how to teach you. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's I said it was psychology class, right?
Yeah.
We learn the process of operant conditioning.
Yes.
You familiar with that term?
Yep. Yep.
That's what they're doing on the social media.
Yep.
That's why everybody's hooked on social media because you've been operantly conditioned, right?
Yep.
They find out what you like, and then
Yep.
they
Feeding it
give it
to
to
you.
you in a randomized way. It keeps you coming
Pavlov.
back, just like a gambler playing the slot machine.
That
That's
Pavlov dog story.
the social dilemma. It's a
Yep.
documentary
Yes.
that's on
Yes. I
Netflix.
saw
The
that.
social dilemma
Yeah.
that tells the whole story, breaks it down.
Yeah, yeah. These young impressionable minds, even some of these older impressionable minds, but it's the repetition. I'm reading the book The Power of Habit, and it's talking about how you can shape or change habits. And like you say, it's the initiator, it's the habit, and it's the reward. And it's talking about how you can focus on changing the habit because there's always going to be a
Hmm.
reward, but the habit has to be something that is changed, and the reward can stay what it is, but it's the habit of watching watching the drama, watching the violence, watching the ignorance, watching just over and over and over and over, and then you get used to seeing yourself in bad light, and then you start to make excuses for seeing yourself in this bad light, but then the worst is become normalized, and then you make excuses from that. And once again, so like I was talking earlier, black people are in trouble. The Hispanic population has already passed us as far as numbers. And I was looking at a video the other day. I forgot this one MSNBC white ladies, but she was talking about how she was basically calling out some of the liberals, but also talking about how she believes that the Democrats will soon dump the black community for the Hispanic community. They will become the new model minority for the Democratic Party because they have the power in the numbers and they have the power in the economics. And I'm saying on top of that,
Hmm.
black people got to be mindful of becoming fourth and fifth class citizens and no longer being that main labor class and being an even lesser class. And we're dependent upon the system, but if we keep degrading in class, shoot, we gonna be messed up.
You know when integration, or the desegregation laws we passed, Civil Rights Act, and all of that.
Hmm.
In most cities, we had our own communities with our own economic infrastructure.
Okay.
Neighborhood I grew up in, Atlanta, had within walking distance of my house, it's two movie theaters, a
Hmm.
drugstore, a gas station, uh, two restaurants, two nightclubs, just in a hotel.
Hmm.
All of this in the neighborhood, right? When the Civil Rights Act was passed, we stopped patronizing our own to run downtown to sit our butts on the toilet next to a white person down at the Holiday Inn.
Yep.
The only thing I learned from all of that is that most white people don't wash their hands after they use the toilet.
Right.
That was my takeaway from the whole civil rights movement. That's my takeaway,
Yeah.
right? So that's we just gave up on our own. So
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
what happened in the hood? Everybody with means ran off
Leave.
to the suburbs to live with the white folks,
Yep. Yep.
right? Leaving the hood devoid of the infrastructure that it used to have. It used to be that whether you was the pimp, the preacher, the lawyer, or the doctor, you lived in the same community,
Hmm.
right? So a kid growing up looking for role models, he got more than just the gangster on the corner to look at. You know,
Yeah, yes, yes.
yeah. So we gave that up. My generation did that to us. That was my
Mm-hmm.
generation. I'm in
Mm-hmm.
the generation of the first black people to do this or that.
Right.
Right. Coming out of college, all my classmates we all had jobs when we got out of college because the equal employment opportunity stuff was
Mm-hmm.
going on. Everybody was trying to get as many black folks as they could into their thing. So everybody had a job, but it was the whole thing was empty. It was hollow.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was just for show. It was just for show.
I look at
Uh,
Frenchtown.
Frenchtown,
Yeah, I
yeah,
look at it's no more.
right. Same thing for Overtown in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
They were called Overtown. Same thing. What happened? What they did was the white developers would come in and they buy up one little piece of property over here,
Yeah. Yeah.
another piece of property over here, and eventually they just squeeze everybody out, and then they start redeveloping.
Yep.
Last
Yep.
time I was in Miami, I knew what street I was on, but I didn't recognize any of the buildings around me. I didn't know
Yeah.
what that stuff was. I was like, where
Yeah.
did this come from? I was big old skyscrapers, man. I was like, the tallest building in Miami when I left, it's dwarf. You can't see that anymore.
Yeah.
Man, crazy.
It, yeah, it's funny. That's what my friends say when they come back here to Tallahassee. It's like, man, this not the Tallahassee I left. Like you leave Tallahassee, you don't come back for 3 to 5 years, and it's changed. Your neighborhood has changed. The areas have changed. Gentrification is real. When we let it happen,
Right.
like just what happened to South City. They've been telling people. We all been hearing them talk about knocking down South City for the last 15 years at least. I know at least 10 years strong. They've been talking about knocking down South City. They finally did it, and people were surprised about it. I don't understand that other than us basically just well, I do understand it's the post-traumatic slave syndrome. It's the mind, it's the stuff that happened to us mentally, us not breaking the chains. But those
Right.
of us who have so-called broken the chains, who haven't taken any action, you're not helping. I mean, but if
Right.
you see something, if you see they got plans in place, then we got to put protective things in place so we can keep our community or equip the community so when that happens, they know how to make their next move. And we didn't do that.
On some basic level, we don't trust each other. But
Yeah.
tell me this: why do white people have contracts? Because
Exactly.
they don't trust each other.
Exactly. But they put something in place to make sure stuff get done. At
Yeah,
the end of the
yeah,
day,
they
they
have
understand we got to get stuff done though.
yeah, they have a system that you can enforce certain things because
Yeah.
of that system. But we don't operate well in that type of environment.
Right.
So
Right.
we don't want to sign off on nothing. We don't want to commit. We don't want to trust one another. Man, if you
Right.
can't if you can't trust your own, who can you trust?
You can't
Certainly
you
not them.
right.
I don't care
You
how
got nobody
sweet
to
they
trust.
sound or what they offer you. When it's funny. When was this? This is probably back around '99, somewhere like that. The Urban Bush women had a little dance workshop thing at FSU, and they had a session on racism. And this one woman this is a white woman. She said, "Well, you may not be what you would call yourself a racism. You may not be what everybody thinks a racist is. Like you don't hate black
Hmm.
people or anything like that." She said, "But if you participate in this American system, you are participating in racism
Yep.
unconsciously. You may not
Yep.
intend to, but that's what you're doing."
Yep.
A lot of people left there, with frowns on their faces. So that's exactly right. Uh, when Malcolm, when that college student walked up to Malcolm that time and asked him, "What can I do to help?" And he was like, "You can't do anything for me. So you need to go back to your community
Yeah.
and spread this word, right?
Right.
Because when white people of good intentions, so to speak, when white people of good intentions show up with a plan for us, it's going to benefit them more than it benefits us. And they never
Yes.
stop to ask us, did we want that from them in the first place? You know, if
Yes.
you want to help me, come ask me what I need and what I'm willing to accept from you. You know,
Frederick Douglass talked about it with the
they just
abolitionists.
roll in with an agenda. And,
Yep.
you know, what was that? Lyndon Johnson's War on Poverty?
Yep.
That hit right after I got out of the military. I used to work in a couple of projects related to that. But that
Mm-hmm.
was just a whole lot of money being thrown at a problem. And when the money man ran out, the problems had not been solved.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So,
See,
you know,
see, my audience, you see, you, he's contributed to a lot of the information that I've gathered over the years because, and I'm laughing, and I'm not laughing because it's funny, but I'm laughing because it's confirmation because we do, you know, our Friday breakdown videos. These are a lot of things that we talk about, and it's just, you know, it's just more confirmation that we got a lot to work. We got a lot to work on here in Black America, but it's just the effects of things that have happened to us. And that's why I believe, I do believe that we should make sure that we have knowledge of self across all 9 areas of human activity. But I believe Black psychology and Black history go hand in hand because you have to understand the psychology behind the things that happen. If you don't understand the psychology behind the history, and of course the psychology goes behind everything, but especially that history, because the way we learn history is so flat, it's so vanilla. It's just this is the information, these are the people, and we're only going to teach you about the people that make white people feel good, because it spurs no action.
I'll give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
What was the rest of the world doing when Christopher Columbus set sail?
A whole
What
lot.
was going on everywhere else?
A whole lot wrong. I mean, Spain had just the Isabella
And
Ferdinand had
Africa.
just, yeah. um
And Africa.
um Mansa Musa had stuff like
Yep.
Africa had it going on in what they call the
Yeah.
Middle Age of Mansa Musa and Mali and everything that's going on. It was a lot going on in the world in 1492.
Right. If prior to 1492, I got a book. That's the title of the book, 1492.
Okay.
And it says that prior to 1492, everywhere in the world was pretty much technologically and socially and whatever equal.
Yeah.
Nobody was doing it any harder or any better than anybody else. Everybody was on the same plane. But that gunpowder, the Chinese came up with the gunpowder, and you know, Christopher crossed the ocean. That's when the tables got turned.
Yep. Yep.
And see, and when we like during a month like this one, Black History Month, when we separate Black history out from all the rest of that stuff, it appears that well, there was just this Black history thing happening over here in this dimension, and over here in this other dimension, all this other stuff was happening. And somewhere along the way, they bumped into each other.
Right.
But no,
Right.
there was commerce going on in Africa way before Christopher. What this is what people don't know. There was an Arab slave trade in
Yep.
Africa.
Yep.
What 500, 800 years before Christopher Columbus even
Yep.
appeared on the scene.
Yep.
It's still going on right now. It never stopped.
Yep.
It never stopped. You think slavery has been abolished? No, it has not.
Nope.
Nope. Only in certain parts of the world. But that thing going on the east, all this stuff with body snatching, abducting
Yep.
people, you
Yep.
know, that kind of thing, trafficking, all that
It's
is
been
related to
happening.
that.
It's
It's
been
still
happening.
going on.
Yep.
Still going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, ain't much change. But basically, everybody was on the even keel until Columbus showed up. Now
Mm-hmm.
Columbus, there's a book called The Dogs of War. It's
Mm-hmm.
about Ferdinand Isabella of Spain, the expulsion of the Moors, and Christopher Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Columbus showed up right around the time of the Spanish Inquisition,
Yep.
where the Spanish were trying to uproot all the Jewish people in the country. They were trying to get rid of them, right? At the same time, they're trying to get rid of the Moors.
Right.
Okay, Columbus shows up. He's hanging around just to see what happens because he's from Italy. He ain't even Spanish, right? So he's
You're right.
hanging around. They they start the Spanish Inquisition, and they confiscated all of the wealth of the Jewish people they subjected to the Inquisition, all their money, their land, their property, you know, and that's how they built the fortune that they used to finance Christopher Columbus,
Yep. Yep.
right? Columbus, you know, everybody wants to call him a great explorer. No, he wasn't. He was just an opportunist.
Yep.
See, you know, like if you're going to launch an expedition to some place where you think there might be whatever, you're going to send maybe a botanist, somebody knows about plants. You're going to send a geologist, somebody knows about the earth and the rocks.
Yep.
Probably somebody who's skilled with languages. You know, you're going to have an entourage that's got people who have expertise and things you might desperately need when you get to wherever it is you think you're going. Christopher Columbus just had a bunch of people who were looking for something to do. Some of
Right.
them were ex-cons or whatever they were. You know,
Yep.
they were just looking for a way to get a few dollars and take a chance on something. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
but in some of his earliest writings, this is why I want to go to Seville, Spain. He said that his mission was to wean these ignorant individuals from their savage ways and to bring them to Jesus.
Right.
Joe, you remember Hathaway,
Yep.
the
Yes.
Taino brother. You
Yes.
know, they threatened to burn him at the stake if he
Yep.
didn't convert. And so the bishop, what's his name? Something with a B, Bartholomew or something.
Yeah.
Whoever the bishop was. He said, wouldn't you like to repent and come to Jesus before we light the fire, so your soul can go to heaven? And Hathaway said, well, are there any Spanish people or people like you in heaven? And the bishop said, yes, the good ones. Hathaway said, I don't want to go anywhere where there's any of you. Light the
Right.
fire.
Right.
Set it,
Exactly.
set it off. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Igbo landing. The people from Igbo landing. When they realized what was getting ready to happen to them, they turned around and walked right back in the water.
Yep.
That's the basis of the story of the people who could fly.
Yep. Yes.
Oh, and there's one other thing that crossed my mind. The divination system in E5. It's binary, just like your computer.
Mm-hmm.
It's a binary system of it's yes or no or on and off or whatever.
Right.
But that's the precursor to your computer.
Yes.
So it's Africa all over the place.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Look left, look right, look up, look down. Like America couldn't run without the contributions of African people, of African descendants, of Black people. The world wouldn't be what it is without the contribution of African people. Period. From the earliest civilizations, from the Twa to the Khoisan to all of us that exist now. Look, Baba. You anytime you want to come on this channel, anytime you want to sit down, let's sit down. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you before I forget. How familiar are you with the Black history of Tallahassee?
I'm a little bit versed. I've studied a little bit. Looked at a lot of stuff at the Raleigh Museum. I got a couple of publications from there that have. I got one that's got some old newspaper articles from way back in the day about Black people in Tallahassee. So I know a little bit.
Okay, yeah, because I'm filming now I'm making a docu-series, and I want to go to different cities throughout the country and document the Black history, but I'm starting here in Tallahassee. And so I'm trying to get more leads to find a lot more Black history about Tallahassee. So that's why I was asking, see if you had some leads to certain people, because I know I've been trying to get in contact with like Althemise Barnes. I've been able to get in contact with Miss Maisha Mitchell. So
Okay, yeah, both of them are friends of mine.
Okay. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
um,
Yeah, I know
yeah.
Alchemy's Barnes is
Those are two of the best sources you could approach if you
right. That's
feel
what I
that for
heard. That's
sure,
what people keep telling me. So
for sure.
I know next Sunday I'll be able to sit down with Mama Maisha, but I know I don't know how to get in contact with Alchemy's Barnes. So that is one thing I'm trying to do is connect with her.
Call the museum.
Okay.
Call the museum. She's not always there, but
Right.
if you tell them what you want, they will either have her call you or put you in touch with her. I
Okay.
saw
I'll
her
do that.
just last week. I was there doing the Blended Lives program last week, and she
Okay.
passed through. So yeah, I've
Okay.
spoken to her recently.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll do that. But yeah, I definitely appreciate your time, Baba, today. Like I say, whenever you up to it and you want to come back on, you want to sit, catch up and chop it up, let's do it because I want to make sure that once we continue to bridge that gap, but we continue to get the information out. I have information, you have information. Let's get together, put our minds together, make sure people know this information. For those of you who don't know, this is Baba Olusegun, Mr. Samuel Williams. He's a staple here in this Tallahassee community, staple in Florida, in the community of Florida. He's a musician, historian, an activist, a pillar in the community. Just some he's a tangible person that the people in our community can actually reach out and touch and see. He's not a myth. And that's one of the great things about him is our youth actually have real access to him. And he's lended his time and his talents and his efforts and his heart to Tallahassee for years and shoulders that I stand on. So if there's any time that I can be a part of contributing to us knowing who are the people who are the real heroes in our community, I'm gonna be a part of that. And that's Baba Olesegun. So my hat goes off to you. I definitely appreciate
Thank
everything
you,
that
man.
you do. And like I say, anytime if I can help in any type of way, let me know. But anytime you want to get this information out, let's do this.
Yes, sir. When I was growing up, I was fond of Peter Pan
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't want to grow up. So I tried my best not to. It happened anyway, but I tried to keep my youthful mentality. I
Yes, sir.
loved interacting with young people
Yes, sir.
because their thoughts are usually fresh and they're honest for the most part. They tell you
Yes.
exactly what, especially the little ones. They tell you
Yes, they
exactly
do.
what they're thinking.
Yes,
You
they do.
know, and I've had my eyes opened up many, many times from the words of somebody that was like 5 years old. You'd be
Yeah.
surprised.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I'm not gonna hold you up no longer, and I got to get to my next thing. I'm moving and stuff. So, but I appreciate you, and I'm definitely gonna reach back out to you so we can set something up again in the future. So I appreciate you, Bob.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate you too. Take
Yes,
care.
sir. Yes, sir. And remember, my audience, www.ontheshoulders1.com. Hit the super like button under the video, www.patreon.com to support. All of that information is in the description. See y'all later.